Hey everyone, welcome to this first ever Patreon Q&A. Thank you so much to everyone supporting this channel and everyone who submitted a question. Let's jump right into it. First question, why harp? My first encounter with a harp was on a film set. My friend had brought her harpsichord, very similar to the one I have, as a prop, and when I had a few minutes of downtime, I started playing, absolutely fell in love with it, obsessed with it for a few months before eventually getting my own. What do you enjoy most about playing harp versus other instruments? I think one of the encouraging things about learning to play the harp is that it's very difficult to sound awful. I think there's certain instruments like trumpet or violin where just producing good sound is the result of a lot of practice. For the harp, obviously there is proper technique to learn, but naturally the sound that it produces is very soothing. I think when you're a beginner and you're just learning to play, even if you're making mistakes in the piece that you're playing, it still sounds very pleasant, and there's something very encouraging about that. My musical background is mostly in piano, and it's not a huge jump from piano to the harp. The notes are laid out in a kind of similar way, and I mean, what is a harp if not a naked piano? So I already had a repertoire of songs that I could arrange for the harp, and I wasn't starting from scratch. And I think those reasons made the harp kind of an accessible instrument to learn that wasn't too demotivating. Have you touched any deer before? I wish! What do you do when you're not making YouTube videos? Do you have another job, go around solving crimes, chase down beasts of a potentially supernatural variety? Nothing as exciting, I'm afraid. I mainly work as a videographer and editor, which was useful when I started this channel because I already had most of the lighting and camera equipment that I needed. Ton français est excellent. Est-ce une langue maternelle pour toi? Oui! Donc, je suis bilingue, et avec mon accent, c'est difficile de cacher que je suis québécoise. J'ai un parent francophone, un parent anglophone. J'ai fait mes études primaires et secondaires en français et ensuite mes études universitaires en anglais. As-tu une formation musicale? J'ai commencé le piano à l'âge de 5 ans, ensuite le violon à 6 ans. J'en ai joué pendant mon primaire et mon secondaire, donc pendant 11 ans. Depuis, j'accumule des instruments ici et là. Je pense qu'il y a une certaine base assez universelle dans la musique. Je pense que c'est une des raisons pour laquelle j'ai eu de la facilité à apprendre la harpe quand j'ai commencé, parce que j'ai trouvé ça très semblable au piano. Shall we see more of your original compositions in the future? I'd like to. I'm constantly working on original stuff. Not everything ends up becoming something. A lot of it is just musical fragments on post-it notes in my notebooks. But there are a few pieces that I've been working on. I've enjoyed composing much more since getting a harp because every instrument inspires something different, and I think bringing a harp into the mix has definitely made things more interesting from a composer's perspective. I think it's much more daunting when you're working on originals as opposed to covers to release something. I think you want it to be perfect by the time it comes out, and I feel like a lot of things that I'm working on still have to marinate a little bit. So I am opening the door to that in the future, but not quite yet. Which is your favorite among your videos? Musically, I think I would have to say Holocene. I really enjoyed working with percussion for the first time, collaborating with a singer, even adding my own harmonies. It was something that was very much outside of my comfort zone, and I think it turned out pretty good. Visually, I would have to say Careless Whisper. I had a lot of fun making it, I really enjoy being silly, and I think it shows. What's the most challenging piece you've played so far? I wouldn't say the song itself was necessarily the most challenging, but I had a lot of trouble playing Moon River. I had set myself the very ill-guided challenge of learning a song in 24 hours, which I did with great difficulty. It was filmed at sunset on a beach in fall. It was cold, my fingers were stiff, I could barely see the strings anymore. And because I didn't know the song that well, there were a lot of false takes where I had to start over because of mistakes. But eventually I got it. Thank God. After releasing a video, do you ever realize you missed adding some other element which would make the video better than the released one? All the time. I'll listen to a piece that I've played and think, oh, I should have played this differently, or I'm playing this way too fast, or think I should have moved the light just a little bit to have less of a shadow. There was one video that I reshot, which was I Don't Want to Be You Anymore. I'd filmed it on the small harp, the harpsichord, but there were some issues with the sound recording. I found my performance very stiff, and I initially wanted to have some sort of movement somehow in the frame, and I couldn't think of anything, so I settled on just a blank pink background, and it was fine. But then a few weeks later, I got the Dusty Strings Ravenna harp, and I figured, why not reshoot it? I can break the ice on the new harp with a song that I'm already familiar with, and I had the idea of adding the curtains and the wind for something a little bit more interesting visually. So I'm glad I did. On average, how many takes will you do? A lot. So a recording session will usually be an hour and a half from the moment I start playing to the moment I stop playing. I always try to have a few perfect takes. And the way that I keep track of those is that I tap on the soundboard of the harp so that I can look at the audio file and see peaks and know, okay, this was a good take, which you might have seen in one of my videos. After you complete filming the video and make sure that everything is perfectly captured, then do you go directly to rest for a while, or do you pack up all your things? A little bit of both. I usually film late at night when it's dark so I can have better control over the lighting. And thankfully the harp isn't loud enough to bother the neighbors, I hope. So I'll often finish filming a video at like 2 or 3 a.m, be exhausted, face full of makeup, just wanting to shower and go to bed. So depending on my energy level, either I try to clean up as much as I can, or sometimes I just go to bed as soon as possible. If you could collab with anyone in the world, who would you collab with? Probably Nick Cave. I'm a huge fan of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and I love his work with Warren Ellis, especially on film soundtracks. Will you tell us the other harpists who inspired you? Or will you recommend some other great artists which you know? The first few harpists that I got to know were on YouTube when I was researching the harp before I started playing. I first started by following the channel Learning the Harp with Christy Lynn, which I highly recommend if you're thinking of picking up the instrument. Otherwise, I love Emily Hopkins' channel. She does amazing, amazing things with effects pedals. And if you like video game music, I recommend Samantha Ballard's channel. In terms of other artists, I adore Joanna Newsom, who's just an incredible harpist and songwriter. What other artistic or creative interests do you have apart from harp and video production? I love to draw and paint. You might have noticed some of my artwork in some videos. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that my handle is Naomi SV Draws, because initially it was just an art page. And some of you subscribe to the postcard tier on Patreon, where you receive a postcard print every month. What's your comfort TV show or movie? Like when you're down and sick, what sort of thing do you watch that always makes you feel better? And are we likely to get a cover of those? You already did. Twice. Otherwise, I love Spinal Tap. It's probably the most quoted film in my family. And I like watching The Office when I can't fall asleep. So to settle the debate, the British version is more groundbreaking, but the American version is more rewatchable. Yeah. Es-tu déjà venu en France? Si oui, où exactement et qu'en as-tu pensé? Donc, j'ai vécu presque 1 an en France quand j'étais toute petite. Depuis, je suis allée à Paris plusieurs fois, j'ai passé quelques étés dans le sud de la France, notamment à Cannes et à Nice. J'adore la France, c'est un des endroits que j'aimerais revisiter. J'adore particulièrement les crêpes et les fromages français. Et d'autres raisons non culinaires aussi. What is your overall feeling after completing 1 year? It's a pretty incredible feeling. I had no idea what I was setting out on when I started this channel, and I'm so happy that not just that it got some sort of success, but also that it's brought something to people. I think some of my favorite comments that I receive are people telling me they're having a bad day and that listening to the harp music just kind of made them feel better, made them feel calmer. It really touches me a lot to hear those kinds of responses. I think having some sort of audience for the first time pushed me to learn more, explore more creatively, and I've been really enjoying that motivation. So thank you so much to everyone supporting this channel on Patreon. If you don't already, go check it out. You can have access to sheet music, behind the scenes, and other fun stuff.